Welcome back to the Forging Alpha podcast, where we talk about fitness, nutrition, lifestyle, and today we're kind of bringing up a new topic.
Weaving around fatherhood and all the aspects that brings, one from a leveling up standpoint, how to optimize while you are adding a new responsibility to your life.
Yeah, because we've got one coming in July. It's going to be our first child. We're super excited, but that also means that my life, as I visualize it and see it right now, is about to change quite a bit over the next 6 months to forever.
Yep, and I have a 1-year-old, just turned one this month. So
you've got a short but substantial head start on me.
Yes, so it's been right around this time last year. We were about a week into figuring out the reins of how the hell we were going to keep that thing alive.
How fast has the last year gone by?
The fastest year of my life, for sure. The first 3 months is like a fever dream because you're literally just trying to, again, like make sure mama is taken care of, keep the kiddo alive, do as much as you can, but it's a lot of emotional support.
Yeah.
You're kind of fueled by adrenaline because it's such a new reality of things. So you're pretty motivated to, continue doing what you need to do. And but it obviously adds a new level of challenge. Like we didn't sleep throughout an entire night for the first 10 months. You're dealing with a whole new schedule. It's no longer your schedule. So maybe what had been planned before is no longer gonna happen.
Are you saying that
I'm not gonna have it?
Are you saying that I'm not gonna have absolute control over everything that happens throughout my day now?
No.
Uh-oh.
No. And I think still with one, it's a different topic than when you have 2, 3, 4. Completely. Or in my case, because I'm the oldest of 8, that's a completely different story. So there's a little bit of buffer room there because you're still dealing with a single. When there are more moving pieces to that equation, I feel like this is going to be a completely different conversation.
Yeah, it definitely gets more complex from here. Just like really anything does in life, whether it's business, fitness, whatever, it's getting more complex. But I don't think anything would get more complex than multiplying the number of mouths that you're responsible for, number of little peoples that you're keeping alive, and growing into great people to go out there into the world.
Right, dude? It's a big responsibility.
If you think about it, it really is.
And it's one of those things of I don't know if anybody's ever prepared or ever thinking going into it like, I know exactly how I'm going to do this.
Let's talk in your instance then. So when you were about 6 months out, like, were you feeling nervous? Were you feeling like you're ready for it? Talk us through kind of what your expectation was versus the reality in those first few months.
Yeah. So I think by the 6-month mark, it had settled in. We were still far enough away that I was like, I need to be 100% prepared already. Yeah. It was kind of that middle ground of like, we're prepared, but I'm enjoying this process. I'm not going to be super stressed out because we still have 4 more months of this.
Yeah, a long ways to go.
The initial shock had kind of worn off of like, holy smokes, like my life is changing forever.
Right.
And so at the 6-month mark, it was kind of just going about duty. We were prepping, we were starting to get things together for the baby room, thinking about how we were going to adjust things and how we needed to pivot. But it started getting more real, I'd say a month out. Because you think that those 9 months are going to be pretty slow, and they are, and then you blink, and then it's there. So it goes by, it starts out slow, and then once you hit that period of overcoming the shock, it starts speeding up, and then it's like, it's time to go. It's here now. So then you're in it, and then they're here, and then
you're cleaning diapers, you're waking up in the middle of the night.
Yeah. And so that was where I was at around 6 months. How are you feeling right now?
Right now I feel pretty good. However, I don't know if it's just the progression MMG wise or what it is. I already feel like the last 3 months have flown by. Like what?
Bro, I remember you guys calling. It's been 6 months.
No, 6 months out.
Oh, yeah, you're
Like
6 months out.
Yeah, we're 3 months in.
And even then, I feel like you called us a week ago.
Completely. Well, when was that? That camping trip was like early October, late October,
Yeah.
sometime in there. I don't know. But yeah, the first 3 months have flown by already.
Mm-hmm.
So I can only imagine the next 6 are going to be. We're going to blink and it's there.
Yeah, I mean, especially because you're heading into we're in the beginning of the year. Business is obviously popping. You're trying to build up momentum and stuff, and so it's not like you're sitting around just kind of waiting for the baby to be here.
Yeah, it's not like, we're not just hanging out here. We're still part of an early company. So we've been definitely busy. Luckily, less travel so far scheduled for this year. So I think that'll remain pretty constant, having a little less travel than last year. But I would say the home gym is like 90% of the way there. And then my next like weekend project, hey, let's start getting stuff ready, is the baby room. So I think it's going to start getting pretty real pretty fast. But so far, I wouldn't say I'm necessarily nervous for it. I'm pretty excited for it.
Yep.
Super excited. But I think the biggest adjustment for me is going to be on the sleep side.
Yep.
Just because I do not wake up once I hit the pillow.
Yeah. That's something we talked about, is if, are we going to... It was the worry that we might fall asleep and not wake up when we need to.
Okay.
I think everybody does a little bit differently, but for the most part, there's something in the back of your head where you maybe just sleep a little bit lighter. But the baby's, with you for a portion of the time. So if they're screaming, you're eventually probably going to hear the baby. Or if the baby's sleeping in the bed with you. So I think that's the case for some people, and eventually.
So does that almost kind of train you to, you kind of start to recognize that sound, and then you're just waking up automatically?
Oh, it became like a PTSD almost, because then you start waking up thinking you're hearing.
Yeah, you're like, was that it?
And it's not. So we just got to the point right before the 1 year mark. We've had probably 2 months of getting full nights of sleep where she's sleeping all the way through, and finally it felt like it was never going to come. I think that added to the aspect of it being the fastest year of your life, of like you're just underslept, and so you're doing what you can to optimize all those things. And so for me, it was like looking at how do I get the most quality, right? And doing things like going to bed earlier. Really diving into like sleep supplementation was a big thing for me, of like if I can get some things for making the 5 or 6 hours of sleep feel better, feel more restful, then that helped. So even doing some things like with the peptides, that was helpful for me because I felt like I was more restored.
What type of peptide for sleep?
So the growth hormone peptides,
Okay.
ipamorelin, CJC, and then for me, like BPC 157, like when I take that for some old injuries, and when I've done it for inflammation and gut health, that makes a difference for me with sleep. And the combination of those two noticeably increased like my deep sleep cycles and just waking up feeling more rested, even if I wasn't getting as much sleep. So those were a couple things for me. And then obviously like magnesium, usually I take some type of sleep formula if I want something a little more intense. So I'll use something like Somatomax by High Tech Pharmaceuticals. You remember that brand?
I think I remember High Tech Pharmaceuticals.
They make the Mesomorph pre-workout.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
With the clear container that was like a white and a bluish color.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they've got a supplement called Somatomax. It's marketed as like this growth hormone supplement and stuff, but what it has in it is called phenibut.
Okay.
Phenibut is a synthetic form of GABA, which is like a neurotransmitter in your brain that helps slow things down. It's what alcohol raises, is GABA. It's kind of a feel-good relaxation thing, and it's a big dosage of it in there. So they have that, and then some other calming agents, a big dose of vitamin B6, and it's about as close as I've found to being like a pharmaceutical sleep aid without the negatives of pharmaceutical sleep aids. It's only something I will use 1 or 2 times a week because you will develop like a dependence on it.
Yeah.
And it'll eventually start working less effectively if you're doing it more. But like a couple times a week when I need to get some good sleep, especially like during that time period where she wasn't sleeping, I would pull that card out.
So what does that look like though? Because what I'm picturing is it kind of knocks you out and you're sleeping hard. But then if you're waking up in the middle of that because baby's screaming,
Yeah.
does it make it harder to get up? Are you groggy or still getting benefit from it?
It's almost kind of like a euphoric sleep versus like if you were to take a bunch of melatonin. Like, have you ever taken a bunch of melatonin that just leaves you in the twilight zone?
Not as much as it sounds like you've taken, but enough that like I feel groggy. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean more so like melatonin, but then you've woken up like 3 or 4 hours after taking that melatonin, and you're like, I feel like I should be dead right now.
Right.
So it's not as bad as that because you feel tired, but I feel good when I take it because it's raising up a lot of the feel good, like euphoric neurotransmitters. That's the thing about Phenibut is some people use it as an alcohol alternative because it gives you like this feel good relaxation feel to it. So when I take it in the mornings or when I take it at night and I wake in the morning, I usually feel good because that's still in my system.
Is it similar to a kava?
In a way.
As far as the feeling or?
Stronger.
Ooh.
Stronger. So the Soviets developed this thing. It was, I think, for their astronauts. They were going into space.
It sounds like something the Soviets developed.
Yeah. So the thing with GABA, like have you taken straight GABA supplements before? Or you've probably taken something.
I've had stuff that has GABA in it, but I haven't taken like GABA by itself.
Got it. So the issue with GABA is that it doesn't cross your blood-brain barrier very well. Like a lot of it goes to waste because a lot of it gets destroyed during digestion. So Phenibut, it just crosses your blood-brain barrier significantly better. So you actually get more of that in there. Obviously, it's a stronger drug too. So then you've got potential dependence on it with some things, but it's just way more effective than like taking your traditional GABA supplements. So it definitely leaves you feeling pretty calm. Some people supplement with GABA throughout the course of their day, kind of as an anxiolytic. And so, theoretically, you could take Phenibut earlier on in the day if you wanted to use it as like a stress aid without it really knocking you out. But then using high enough dosages like that supplement, it'll knock you out pretty good.
Wow.
So yeah, for some people, like my mom is taking it.
And she likes it.
She sleeps good, but she feels like she gets a hangover effect when she wakes up. So she's like, I don't wake up, but I feel like I get a hangover effect from it. For me, I feel good when I wake up. Like if there's times I just need to like pull that card of I need sleep. I need to make sure I don't wake up. Or if I wake up in the morning, it's going to be a good solid amount of sleep. That's when I pull that card out.
Okay. And just real quick, dosages and how many times a week you would recommend that?
Yeah. So I'm doing that like 1 to 2 times a week.
Okay.
Some weeks I've done that 3 times, depending on if it's a stressful week. Just 1 scoop. So the scoop, to put in perspective, like most, like what like a big scoop of Gorilla Mine, it's a pretty big scoop, right?
Yeah, it's a hefty scoop.
How many grams do you think are in a scoop of that?
Like probably 15 to 20.
20
so
grams,
a protein scoop is like 30 to 40 grams, right?
Yeah.
Total volume?
Yeah. So this scoop, it's got 14 grams of active ingredients in there.
So that's a hefty scoop.
And it's a proprietary blend, but the first ingredient is Phenibut. And most of the time, if you get like a little tincture vial of Phenibut, it's like a 200 milligram per milliliter little tincture. So there's grams of it in there. So it's potent, which is why I recommend don't do it all the time if you're going to do it. So that, and then I'll also have, though, on the flip side of that, something that's sleep supplement that has like your glycine in it or your melatonin, that it's going to help me get restorative sleep, but it's going to create less dependency. So I'll take some of those things more regularly, kind of as a daily pre-workout driver, or maybe sometimes you've got the double scooper of pre-workout, and then other days you've got your
consistent regular one. Yeah.
You're doing your energy drinks throughout the days. Yeah. So that was a big thing for me, and I've always been like sleep supplementation has been a big thing for me.
Yeah. I figured you'd have some insight on that.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, and there's going to be a portion of just, making it through. And that's also where, like, for me, getting my training prioritized to where I wasn't going and smoking a 2-hour leg day for those first couple of months, right? Like, I was being smart with my training because, like, if I'm having to run a business and still be cognizant of that and show up for my wife and have my energy portion towards that, what did that look like for me? So I was still training 4 days a week, but
you're not a freshman in college that's sleeping in the dorms for 12 hours.
Exactly. So the first thing that hit me too, once I became a dad, was noticing how important it was taking care of yourself and the fitness. Like, that was the first thing, like, when I became a dad, of seeing it's, in my opinion, you cannot be the best dad possible if you're out of shape or unhealthy, period.
Totally agree.
And I mean, that's going to maybe trigger some people, but if you can't pour from a full cup, if you don't have the energy levels after a busy day to come home and play with your kids, if you can't pick up a baby and hold her and be able to walk around for an hour trying to put her to sleep and do those things, or have the energy levels to get up in the middle of the night and be there, or wake up early and get stuff done, some stuff is going to struggle. So that was like one of the first, it has made me more motivated to get in shape and stay in the gym since being a dad. Because it created like an urgency with having to maintain those things. Like, I'm looking at those things of, like, even mobility and joint stuff of, like, I'm no longer just training for me anymore. I am training for that aspect, to be there.
One thing that I'm weirdly excited about is that, for lack of a better term or phrase, just the play aspect of, like, running around, being on the floor, getting into those different movement patterns like we've talked about before, where you're not just sitting in a chair, sitting at a desk, driving in your car, standing, like, getting into those different movement patterns, and you're running around chasing them, that type of thing. You're not probably running around chasing yours yet.
Not yet, but it's coming.
Yeah.
And since she's hit that 1 year mark, I mean, I've been on daddy daycare with her being sick the past 2 days, and it's not like she was when she was 6 months old. Like, after the 6-month mark, when they're just vegetables, essentially they just lay there and you're literally just feeding them, changing diapers, and making sure they're good. Because during that period, you can be there on your laptop, your phone, and doing stuff. Now she's into everything. She's running around, and she doesn't want to sit there and stay still. She's super curious. She wants to go open up all the covers. She wants to look at things, and, like, I've got to have the ability to keep up with that.
Yeah.
When she's running around, like, am I going to tell her no? Like, Daddy's not going to play with you, or we can't go run around for 2 hours because I'm not feeling like that?
Hey.
Yeah, I mean,
Daddy's got to sit here on the couch and watch some TV, chill out.
Not the other day, in December, we went to the zoo and we saw the lights when they were up, right? And it's a big circular thing where you walk around the entire zoo and look at the lights and stuff. And there was this lady there with her 3 kids, and they were begging her to go see other parts of the park. And she was like, "No, we got to go home. My feet are killing me."
Oh, man.
And I looked at her, my wife, and my wife was like, "You shouldn't have freaking come then if you."
Well, first off, why'd you even come out here?
Yeah. Like, when you're struggling and you're not paying attention to those things, that's the only thing you can focus on. And it's almost more selfish letting those things go than it is taking some time for yourself and doing that. So
I think it's far more selfish.
Yeah.
And I don't think people are necessarily doing that out of ill intentions. It's not like they're purposely doing that. But if you don't take the time to make sure you're in the position you need to be, especially physically, and maintaining your health and being able to move around and have that strength, then you're just not going to be able to show up with the energy that your kids deserve.
100%. And even going back to the sleep thing, it's hard, man. Because as great as the baby is, there are times when you're like, I want to throw this thing through the window.
Yeah.
Like, you get some dark thoughts sometimes at 3 a.m. in the morning of, like, I'm about to take this baby back to the hospital because it's just
return to sender.
Yeah.
This is not what I signed up for.
You did sign up for it, but yeah, you didn't. I mean, that
This is not what I
portion,
expected it to be.
100%.
When I was thinking having a kid, I wasn't thinking they were going to wake up an hour after I just put them to sleep.
And and that's going to create some tension with the wife.
Yeah.
You guys are both sleep deprived. You're going to get chippy at each other. If that continues, of like when you have more control and you aren't sleeping and stuff, and like the emotional regulation when you're out of shape or you're sick or things are going wrong with your health, that's going to show up in the relationship with your kids going forward, and they remember that stuff too. So it's like, for me, as she gets past the year mark, I don't know about you, but I don't remember much of what my parents said. I remember everything that they did, though, action-wise. I can remember back to being probably like 3, 4, 5 years old, and I can remember things my parents were doing. I can remember back to high school. I'm like, I don't remember a thing my parents told me in high school.
Not a thing.
But I can remember what they did. And so, like, with that in mind, like, she's going to be at that point where she's going to notice what I'm doing, how I'm showing up. She's going to look at, like, the things that I'm doing. And I can either be looked at like as a superhero in her mind, or it's going to be something where, daddy is kind of a bum. For lack of a better term on that, but.
And that's kind of the perspective that you have to have with it, is you have to be forecasting down the road. Like when they're 18 or when they're 25 or 35, or even when they're having kids, then what do they think about that looking backwards? Because you're not going to have any of that feedback. Like, she's not telling you right now, like, how she feels about it,
Yeah.
Like, it just is what it is. She's experiencing life for the first time, but she doesn't even have the context of which to understand what you're doing, but she will eventually.
I'll tell you the main thing that it really does. And it's going to get more amplified as she's talking and running around and doing that, but it becomes a mirror. Right? You see a reflection directly of what you're doing and your actions and what the results are from that. So as she's now paying attention, she's cognizant more. Like when I'm on my phone around her, like she notices that. Like, and she tries to like come and grab my phone and like do stuff.
I'll do whatever that thing is.
Yeah. And it's like, man, I do not want an iPad baby. So it's like, there's got to be times where the phone just goes down.
Yeah.
And I've got to put that away, and like creating that and developing a habit of that, because if I don't want her to be an iPad baby, I've also kind of got to overcome my addiction of being on my phone and have stops when, all right, 7 p.m. at night, I don't need this anymore. Like, take care of what I need to take care of and like get off of it.
Yeah.
I don't need to be scrolling on social media and stuff. I don't need to have it at the dinner table. So it starts becoming more of a mirror of like, you see a reflection back of your actions and what you're doing, which is honestly, it's a good thing too. I think that honestly, it's an aspect of personal development if you look at it from that sense, right? Because it's forcing you to level up in ways that you never would without that kind of responsibility.
Yeah. And it's such a good watershed moment to make any of those changes that you've been trying to make.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like there's never a better time to start those good habits than now.
Nope.
So being like 6 months out, or being forecast the next 6 months for me.
Forecast.
Or what did yours look like?
And like what it looks like, or what you should do.
Both.
So enjoy it as much as possible. If you guys can get out and do stuff and make those date nights a priority, and maybe take a couple of trips with yourself, do it.
Yeah.
Because
even some of these slow mornings, I've already had that perspective a little bit. I've been thinking like, we're in a very, very short while, we're not going to have, well, to some degree, but we're not going to have this total peace and quiet. Like I'm only taking care of myself in the morning.
100%. We were talking about this last night as we were laying in bed, and it's like, do you wish we would have done more stuff even before we had kids? Like, do you feel like we would have traveled and stuff more? And she's like, no. And I think back the same way of like, no, we've done quite a bit. You know, there's always a thing of, maybe we could have taken an extra beach trip and stuff, but like we had 2 to 3 vacations every single year that we went on. Up until 2 years ago, we did a spring break trip down to Florida or Texas every single year. We do the camping trips. We went to Sandals 3 or 4 years in a row. And so those things are like, we want to continue having that.
Yeah.
We don't want to let that dictate how we're going to live our lives once we have kids of like, oh, we're just going to shut everything completely down. Because, I mean, that trickles into everything. I have kids. I can't work out, but also I can't travel. I can't do those things. We're not going to let that trickle in. But it does change the dynamic. We can't just...
It's not as simple.
No, we can't just go take off for Jamaica anymore, right? Because at this point now we got a vacation plan this summer.
Okay.
And we're gonna have to leave it for the first time for a week.
That's gonna be crazy.
It is gonna be crazy, and so the logistics of that is a little bit interesting because you're not gonna want to be away from your kid for one. But that year before, like last year. It would have been last year. We had the kid all last year. 2023. And we did. I mean, we did quite a bit of stuff. We ended up going to, we went on vacation to Jamaica right after that. So, I mean, as much as you can get away and kind of do those things that are going to be logistically a little more difficult, do them. Do those little weekend trips. Go on a vacation. Or if you want to, like, have a staycation or those weekends that are slow, like, whatever you guys are going to miss, like, do those things. Because it's completely worth it once the kid's there and you've got that. But... that time with you guys definitely, I don't want to say takes a back seat, but that dynamic changes for the first at least 6 months when you have a baby,
Totally. And it's never going to be exactly the same, right? Like going from just the two of you to now there's always going to be your kids now. So it's not one's better than the other. Well, having the kids is presumably better than not, but it's just different. So taking that time to appreciate it for what it is, because you're eventually going to look back at it in whatever you're going to be doing. And these are the golden days back in the day. Like these are those moments that you're going to look back on 20, 40 years down the road.
100%. 100%. So that would be the thing in terms of like logistics. For me, it was a huge help, which you've already done, having the safety nets for fitness, for nutrition. The first thing we did, so when we had the baby, we weren't expecting that it was go time. We went in, she was breached. We were just planning on going. They were going to try to flip the baby. And we still thought we had 2 weeks left.
Okay.
So we didn't even pack the car seat with us when we went in. We had an emergency bag for each of us. We walked in. The procedure it wasn't successful, so the baby didn't flip. And then let me back up. Beforehand, she came into the room. We were there at like 5:30 a.m. And she comes in and she said, after they took her vitals, they're like, your blood pressure's up. If it doesn't work for this flipping, we're going straight into a C-section right afterwards. And so it went
Was that the first time you had heard of that being an option?
No, we knew it would be a C-section.
No, I mean like that it was going to be like now.
Yes. Was on that morning as we were in the hospital ready for
like you're already there.
Yeah, we're already there. So, yeah. And so literally, and we had 15 minutes to take it in before we went into there. They spent 10 minutes trying to do the flipping procedure. Didn't happen. The surgery team was right in there. So we essentially had a 20-minute gap of finding out, and the baby was
where like those extra 2 weeks just
shortened.
Gone.
Yeah.
Gone
So
completely.
within 20 minutes, we were like, we're going to be out of here in the morning. It's either going to be successful or it's not. I was pretty confident, like, it's going to work.
Yeah,
Like, they're going to flip this baby.
Easy.
We'll be good. We'll be out of here. It's going to be a natural birth. To then 20 minutes later, the baby's in our lives.
Oh, my goodness.
That was a completely, like, it threw you off what you had planned.
Of course. Yeah.
So.
Even if you had a plan at that point, now it's
Yeah. So, like, having the home gym, I had to run home and go get the car seat and go get some stuff for the baby. In-laws came into town and were with her.
Yeah.
That next day when I went to do that. And I was able to go home and get a 20-minute workout in.
Yeah.
And just go do something for myself and do a quick workout. Literally as we were in the hospital, like as we were going through the thing, I ordered 2 weeks worth of like prep meals.
That's a good idea.
So they were delivered
a really good idea.
in a couple of days, and like that was a lifesaver. Having that.
I'm gonna need to remember that.
Yeah. So yeah, I did factor meals and I did that, and I think we continued that for the first month. So just having those for the first couple months were huge because that helps stay on track. You know, you need something, get it done.
And you know what's worse than being sleep deprived? Being sleep deprived and hungry.
And hungry. So having those safety nets were huge. Like being able to have the home gym because, I mean, for that first month, I think I started going back to the gym in week number 2.
Oh, wow.
Because the other thing too is C-section is significantly different from that. Like she wasn't walking for a week, really. Like, you know, I was helping her out of bed because they cut through multiple inches worth of her stomach to get in there. Oh, dude, that was a wild thing to see happen. But you know, once she got to the point where she was comfortable having the baby, I started going back there. But that entire time, I was able to walk outside and go to the gym. We were in an apartment complex at that point. But I could go to the garage gym and get it done. And I didn't miss a week. I didn't miss any workouts during that versus most people, you know, they probably sit out from the gym for at least a month when that happens. So having that was good because I was able to still continue that. So yeah, I think that having those safety nets with that, your fitness, food options with things, you know, and for me it was like staying on top of some supplementation. You know, to deal with that extra stress, the sleep deprivation, everything that was on my side of things, that ended up making a big difference. So, and then it, you know, flew by. It flew by as I'd say being as prepared as possible by the time it happens to where maybe being over prepared is whatever that looks like. You know, I mean,
I think you hit something right on the head, though, is that one thing that I hadn't necessarily considered, because when you think, what do you need to do expecting a baby? The first thing's like, okay, well, car seat, make sure you have like some clothes, have the room set up and everything like that. The nursery is ready to go. But a really good idea is like having the meal prep side ready. And just let's already assume the next 90 days, we're probably not taking 4 hours on an afternoon to cook our whole week's worth of meals.
No.
Maybe we just go ahead and order some meal preps.
100%.
Like stuff like that is a good idea.
Yeah, and I think if there's things like on your guys' baby registry, that would help you with like the baby end of things for being prepared. That can be helpful because I mean you never know too when your baby's going to be here. Like you're going to get a wild card with how your baby's going to sleep. You know, are they going to be fussy? Are they going to be how they're going to operate is not really up to you. Like you can't plan for all of those things. So,
this will be fun. The three items or things that you ended up getting that have been like game changers.
Yeah, let me think about that. The 3 things that were a game changer. One of those rocking swings.
Okay.
So I worked from home with the baby after Taylor was after her 12-month leave. I was home with the baby for several weeks. Just working from home, and I would just backlog my days and get my calls in on weekends and stuff. And so the way I would also get work done was I would get her to sleep in that swing. And so she would just swing and take her nap so that I could work in there. So that was a thing. A convenient stroller.
Okay.
Cause
not the full daddy, but something that's little and easy to maneuver.
I just say a good stroller.
Okay.
Yeah.
You said convenient, so
convenient. I guess
else.
Something. I mean, I guess a lot of them today are convenient, but something that's maybe got a cup holder on it. You know, like convenient can look different from everybody, but like the one that we had was easy to maneuver, flip in and out on the go. The car seat transferred.
You're using the stroller a lot.
Yeah, because it transferred the car seat that we use. I think all infant ones do. Maybe not, though. But, like, you could go straight from the car seat clips into the stroller. And so it's the same thing. And then you just put the car seat in the base of that. But, like, when we were going on date nights and stuff and we wanted to go walk around the park and stuff, and we had the stroller, and then we just take that with us. And then for getting my steps in, a lot of times, like when I was home with her and I was still trying to get 12,000 steps in or I was taking calls, I'd put her in the stroller and we go walk while I was on calls. So having a stroller that's, you know, works well and she likes being in, or it's a she, but stroller, swing. What else would be? And are we talking specifically like baby related?
For the 3, yeah.
Yeah. The other thing would be once they get to the point where you can strap them to you.
Yeah.
Having something like that. Like we had one of those ones where it was like manually strapping in, and I took a lot of calls with her in that. I would walk on the treadmill with her strapped into that.
Yeah.
She would fall asleep with me like I'd go on walks. So sometimes she wouldn't want to be in the stroller. So I'd get her all strapped in and tied in, and she'd fall asleep doing that. And so a lot of times if she was fussy, not wanting to go to sleep, it was either the stroller on walks or I'd put her strapped in and we go walk around a loop with her in there and she'd be asleep. So you get your steps in and she falls asleep. So
Win-win. And your arms aren't dead.
And your arms aren't dead. No. Like the amount of Zoom calls that I was taking and I had her strapped in because she didn't want to be put down. And I just had her like right here bouncing.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
Wow.
Quite a bit.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, something to carry them in, something to push them around in, and then
something to keep them sleeping.
something to keep them or preoccupied
Okay.
while you're doing that. So
I like it.
those would be my 3 things.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to put all those on the list.
Love it. So yeah, man, and it's something that you kind of learn as you're going through it too, you know? Like you'll find out, especially if you're going to have multiple, they're like things maybe you did the first time, you'd change or you'd be better prepared on after that, like going into maybe a second kid.
Well, it's you don't know what you don't know, right? Like you can assume that you have everything figured out, but then until you actually get down in the trenches and you're going through it, then you're going to find out, oh, I should have done this, this, and that.
And I think that trying to figure out some ways to make life seem normal. So, like, even though the baby was always with us, like, we still did something date night-wise while we had the baby. So, like, when she was still sleeping all the time, like, we'd go to the Parkville mini golf course. I think we did that, like, 3 times. Where she was asleep the whole time in her car seat, and we would just take her and pick her up and walk through the steps and go from hole to hole, and we go play mini golf.
She's just sleeping the whole time.
Yeah, you can't really go to the theaters and stuff or do some of those things, but figuring out some things that you can do was big for us. We did a lot of walking. We went to a lot of parks. We did a lot of those things. If you can figure out a way to go like bowling, one person holds the baby, the other one bowls, then you just flip-flop back and forth doing that. One of my objectives for this year is hiring a babysitter more.
Where do you even do that?
Care.com is one place. So like Taylor, when she was in college, used to babysit for this family, and she babysat for him for a couple of years, making some money on the side when she was in graduate school. And we've been looking on there because potentially in the future we want an in-person nanny. So you can find babysitters, nannies on there that they have to go through background checks and everything, and you can like pay to refine your process if you want, to upgrade on their thing. But care.com is a place where you can search where people, if they're babysitting, if they're college students, if they're full-time nannies, they have daycare, they'll list that on care.com. And then, if you know somebody, like we had an old lady that was our neighbor at the apartment complex who had 5 kids, so she knew what she was doing. She babysat for several get-togethers we went to when we came out for Lauren's birthday party. She babysat for us. So also, if you know somebody that would be a good babysitter that you have a personal relationship with, that's probably the best.
That's always a good way to go. Yeah.
Because, it's tough, too, because as we look through, like, the in-person nannies, the concern is always bringing somebody that you don't know into your house or that's taking care of your kid, right? And you're like, man, I don't know, because you hear these horror stories about some nanny or babysitter that, like, drowned the baby and stuff. And so if you can find somebody that you've got a personal connection with the babysitting portion of it.
Always a good thing.
Always a good thing.
Totally.
Yeah. So, and, pivoting your schedule and what you need to get done like for me, I can make most things happen now between like my fitness, my nutrition, my work, because we've got daycare. So I don't necessarily have to be getting up at 3 a.m. right now and getting all that stuff done. That's something, though, we talk about that conversation, that's going to be different once I have a couple kids. I'm probably going to have to be getting up and getting those things done. Like if I want to do a cold plunge in the sauna and a workout, like I'm probably going to have to get up, and if I want that portion of things for myself or doing something with my wife, I'm probably going to have to do that before the day then, starts and becomes about the kids and everybody else. So,
or at least you're probably not doing anything with the wife at 3 a.m, but you can take the you time to work on yourself. That way that you have when the kids go to bed, then when you have that time, you can give that to her and just have that one-on-one time.
Mm-hmm. And, or maybe it's, you got a mandatory cup of coffee that you're having.
That'd be good.
Before then. That the morning time for us became a little bit more reactive, as I'm, trying to help her get things done. She's trying to get ready. We're trying to get the baby ready, and then both go about our day. It'd be a goal of mine to take a little more time to have a little more calm and peace before it's just, flying around with our hair caught on fire. We built out the movie room a little bit downstairs, so we got a 65-inch TV up there now, and we got a big old couch that we do. So our evening routines have been like by 8 p.m. we go down there and we hang out and we either read or we watch a movie every single night, and we spend that time together. But also, I feel like finding a chunk in the morning would be the next step, because that becomes hard and there's less time for you guys. You obviously have to some extent prioritize the baby, but when you start looking at why most people end up getting in a divorce or their relationship starts going downhill, is because they completely lose the aspects of why they fell in love or got married. So, even if it's a 20-minute gap in the day, I know some people, like, they do a walk every single day and like that's their thing. I feel like finding those small chunks of time is important.
And having those chunks consistently, because that's the biggest thing. Just like whether it's fitness, mindset, nutrition, it's the daily habits that you have, and you've got to be intentional with them, because when you go through the chaos of having your first child, if you don't have intentional habits and systems in place, then life's going to take over.
Yep. And I think having a system for goals, for example.
Yeah.
Because as it gets more chaotic, like, you're going to be pulled towards like immediate needs of doing that and taking care of the baby and feeding them and all that. And I can see where a lot of people just get in that mode of keeping their head above water.
I get it.
Yeah, I do. And I get caught, you get caught in those cycles of that, you're just trying to survive. And to some extent, I think you start off like that, and you have to.
It'd be hard not to.
You've got to go through a transition period. But at some point, I feel like you've got to be resourceful and find a way to look at the big picture vision, right? And come back to that. So, like, for me, it's like, all right, these might be the obstacles, but I don't want to spend the next years just being reactive with things if I'm not growing towards like my bigger vision for myself, my family, and all those things.
Well, if you got a ship out on the ocean and you just brought somebody new on, and now you're helping them out, making sure they're all right, in this case your daughter, what you can't forget to do is steer the ship. Like, you still got to make sure, you got to help out your inner unit and make sure that you're building those systems, but you also still need to be progressing the whole thing forward and being ambitious and creating that lifestyle that you want for her 10, 15 years down the road, because it's not just about making it work right now. You also need to be looking to the future and what you want that to look like.
Yeah. And I'm somebody that is a procrastinator by nature.
As am I.
So one thing with the time feeling like it's on fast forward now is the things that, like, I'm saying I'm going to do. Like, I have to force myself to just go do them now, because, like, one example would be I had this, I'm going to go start her like an investment account, right? I didn't start that until 2 weeks ago. Like, holy smokes, it's been a year.
Yeah.
If I keep putting this off, it's going to be 5 years. It's going to be 18 years. And then, like, I didn't do that. So, and literally as simple as, like, going and using, like, have you ever heard the Acorns app?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, going on there and, like, if I start putting in, and I lost a year with that, but if I put in $20 a month, by the time she's 21, like, she's going to have over $20,000 just from doing that. Like,
yeah.
I can put more in. But, like, if I would have started that process earlier.
But that's a really easy thing to do if you're looking ahead.
Yes.
And that's the only way that's actually beneficial is if you forecast it down the road.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just be looking at today.
No. But then I let that, like, I'm going to get that started. I'm like, oh, crap, it's already been 1 year. So, like, just, like, doing the things and getting that done. Yeah. And, like, that realization of things of, like, man, it's not getting any easier. Like, I'm almost 30. Like, the goals that I set at 21 by the time 30, I'm like, man, it's here.
Yeah.
It's, full charge ahead, man. Like, I've got to make stuff happen because it's not just going to fall into my lap with certain things. So, like, action forward with that and forcing myself to do the things that I put off in a past life and then making it happen with that because, yeah, if you value something, it's got to just be, it's got to be done, right? And
you got to take the steps.
100%. So for right now, I don't have to work out at 5 a.m., but I'm probably going to have to start doing that at some point. I'm probably going to have to start going to bed at 8 p.m. because if I value that, like, it's just...
If you still want those 7 to 9 hours.
That's one thing I've been doing more recently, though, is, like, we're in bed by 8:30, 9 p.m. We've been doing that for the past, I'd say, month consistently.
Wow.
So... I just feel better when I do that, When it
Makes
starts
easier to
creeping
get out
up
of bed.
10 p.m., 10:30, and it just starts cutting into that time. So it's like, forecasting, like what that future version of myself looks like. It's like the next version of Kaleb is in bed by 8:30, 9 p.m., and probably getting up around 5 or 5:30, And maybe I don't have to do that right now, but then again, that next level of me has to do that. And so... I need to start acting in accordance with that next level if I want to continue stepstoning it up. So, like, looking at things from that perspective for me is like, man, yeah, it's going to be work. It's going to be doing a lot of things I don't want to do, but, like, what's the alternative? Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, man.
I think we should start making this a little bit of a recurring theme throughout the show.
I agree.
Yeah, because fatherhood's exciting.
It is. It is. And it's... nothing good in life probably comes from a lack of responsibility, right? It's a huge pain, but also the fulfillment side of things is it's worth it. Anything that's worthwhile, there's going to be an equal amount of growing pain or inconvenience that comes with it. But at the end of the day, if you look forward, by the time you're 50, do you want to just be living in your mom's basement with zero responsibilities?
Not really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Responsibility gives us purpose.
It does.
That's kind of what this is all about.
It is.
I love it. Well, thanks for listening. We will catch you next time on the Forging Alpha podcast.
Peace.